make a request. And it may be that Michael has learned that we are able, or Sean is able, to conditionally format some of the content on the report. So he decides, okay, I'm going to ask for some of that as well. Any people who have no vacation left, so the balance of vacation is 0, I want that actual 0 to show up as bold. So apply formatting to make it bold if it's a 0. And in addition, make the employee name change color. Change the employee name to green if the vacation balance is more than or equal to 80 hours. So if the person has more than 2 weeks of vacation left over still, make their name green. You can do that because all that information is on the same record or row in the report. So you can format something else. Format one column based upon another column's data in the same record. You can have you make green for one and then blue for another. Between 1 and 40 hours, that's going to be blue. That's the new feature we did not introduce in the original class. But first, we still start off the same way. Sean and Michael have an in-depth conversation about what exactly Michael wants for this report. And Sean determines, okay, these are the columns you want then. The employee's name, their ID, their job, accrual code, balances, balance date. So it's going to require we create a report data object. Add an employee view. Give it a name, give it a description. Make sure the relationship rules are checked. And down here, don't forget with this step 8, when you come in here, don't forget about step 8A. You still want to bring in the employee's name, full name. Don't miss that part right there. Bring in the full name. And then in addition to that, bring in their employee ID and their job and such. And pay close attention to the entity. That's the first column. So as a reminder, I come back here for a second. Is this the right one? I don't think so. Not sure that's my... Hold on here. I was teaching a class earlier today, and I think that's the other one. Okay, let me see here. I'm not going to go into these steps in depth like we did in the basic class, but just as a quick review of what we went into with data objects. When you create the report data object, all the way back here in the setup, under common setup, down here in the lower left-hand corner, we start here. Report data object, the selection of the columns for the report. For the purpose of this class, we're just going to create employee views. So employee-related report data objects, not business structure. So up here to add, we chose to add a new one. Now I have mine in there already, so I'm just going to put in the word test here, just to give you an idea. As a reminder, you put in an object key. You cannot have any spaces. You underscores if you want to. Description down here is recommended. You leave this checked at enabled. Column relationship rules. That ensures that as you start to select your content for the report, the system is making sure that those columns relate to each other and it doesn't display for you other columns that would not necessarily be relevant. Up. I'll make sure that's still in there. And then down here at columns, you want to pick the columns, and they say bring in full name. So you choose add, that brings up your data dictionary. We use the column name in the very center, and I type in part of that entry, full name, and I get employee full name. When you choose that, you are allowed to relabel these. Now say for this first report, you can relabel these if you'd like to, that's okay. The next report we do later, I don't want you to relabel them because that'll throw you off for the rest of the exercise. But for this one, it's okay. So I could say employee name maybe, get rid of the word full. So this will be the label that shows up at the top of my column, despite the fact that behind the scenes in our database is called employee full name. That might work. Add that. Another one here. Add again. You can only do one at a time. Employee ID. This is where the entity becomes critical. If I choose this first one, I have a problem. Because notice how that's related to the entity that says audits. If I choose that, I will never be able to get to the accrual code name. It will filter down too much and not let me get to accrual-related information. So make sure you choose it from employee details like it states in that little chart. Right down here, employee ID is from the employee details entity, so pay attention to that. So that one, I could call it EmpID if I want to. add it in. And just keep in mind, at the most you're going to see down here in that lower part of the panel are 5 in total. The system will give you a scroll bar on the right-hand side if you exceed 5, but you'll only at any one point see 5. I'm going to build in about 6 or 7 of those. And by the time you're done with this, it's going to end up looking like this guy. So you're going for this ultimately, vacation underscore balances underscore EE, the description right there, checked for enabled, accrual code name, their balance date, employee full name, and ID. And there's a few more down here as well. Scroll down, primary job. That's your goal. You're going to create that first. That will be what you see initially identified for you on page 4. Page 5 goes into the creation of the unpublished report. Unlike in the basic class where you step through each piece individually, not this time. I'm going to go through all of this at once. But I do want to introduce to you just a couple little things as a reminder, reinforcement content for those little items that throw people off, and I do want to introduce, of course, the new things as well. I'm going to create a new unpublished report and go through data, manage data, and data parameters. Click in the body of the report panel to get to my visualization tab and drag over a table. I know that part right there is kind of tough to do the first few times. Let me show it again. If I come back here, first of all, how do I get back? I tend to prefer the home icon right here next to the Kronos logo. That'll bring me back to the blue panels I was on before when I first went into setup. But the other option is the main menu. That will give you a list of everything kind of top to bottom vertically, which would allow me to get to unpublished as well. So either way, it gets you to the same spot. If you have any reports in here that are unpublished and have not been published yet, they will be sitting in here. Right now I have just the one. This is kind of a sample one we were playing with just to show you something. But I'll create something new. When you choose create, that's when a pop-up might get blocked for you. So keep that in mind. That's the BERT tool trying to open up on top of Workforce Dimensions. So if you have pop-up blockers enabled, it's going to block it. So watch for that message on your screen. Here's what we're trying to get you. We see a Kronos logo, you see report title. That is a starting report. Doesn't have much to it, but that's a starting point. What do we do first? We go to data. It doesn't yet know which report data object to reference. So we tell it under manage data. You find your vacation balances EE, you move it over to the right as selected. Say that's my source content right there. And you okay that. Get a little blue circle, goes round and round. That's similar to an hourglass. You wait for that to finish. When it does, you go back up to data one more time. That's on the menu bar at the very top. You choose parameters. And the only reason we're coming into this is to be able to address the dates. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. I have a particular someone trying to... don't do it, Jasmine. Nope, come here. Come here. I recently got a new desk at my house, and it's not as easy for the cats to jump up and down on top of it. I work from home, so this one's trying to figure it out right now, and she's fully ready to just stand on top of my keyboard and such. Okay, I had to get her out of the room. Thank you. The parameters we have right here. All we care about is the top portion of this form where you see start date and end date. You're simply trying to put some kind of range that makes sense overall versus having it be open-ended or too narrow where you don't get quite the right records you want to see. Don't worry about the lower panel. We don't normally have to worry about any of this. Number 1 right there stands for all home in relation to the person who we're logged in as right now. Logged in as Sean Ivan. So really what I'll see is when I go to preview, I'll see only the people Sean is allowed to see. So permissions do apply to the BERT tool here as well. I'm going to change this guy, make it to the end of the month. That'll be decent. This is 1 week. Click OK. Get a little circle going round and round again. So I identify my report data object and the set of records I want based upon a date. And then they tell you to click in the body of the report panel. Click in the body of the report panel. See those little words right there in that little rectangle? select and drag data, that right now is the body of the report panel. It essentially doesn't have a body yet, so that's it. Just that little piece right there. You click inside there, and the reason why is because see on the left-hand side, it says data up here. So I know we have a data here in this big panel as well as data on the menu bar. Be aware of the difference. The data on the menu bar is in the very beginning. The data right here is just to have a reference to the data source. And right now it doesn't have anything. And there's nothing I can do right here in that form to make it happen. How I do that is I click in this little box, and then it happens automatically. So I click and watch what happens over here. Click. It says, oh yeah, you're looking at this data object vacation balances EE. Yes, yes I am. That's what you need. You need that to be fully aware of the data content right there. So it's an odd little step you do. You just click in that little box and there it goes. And then I go to visualization to bring in a structure that will display my content somehow. Gonna go for a table. The way we usually do this, it's hard to do a click and drag right away. Sometimes it works, not often. What I usually do is click, let go of the mouse, then click on it one more time and drag over at a medium speed. Not too fast, not too slow. And I kind of stop right below all the words there in this blank section down below. Make sure I get a blue circle going round and round. Make sure I have an attachment. Then I let go. And that usually will bring up Table Builder. But it can be finicky. I mentioned that in the basic class. Sometimes it takes some time to where you get the right with the timing, the spacing, and sometimes it still doesn't want to work. That's okay. Just do it as many times as you need to get it to work. You get to pick these in whatever order you want to build them in. You can bring them all over first and then use the arrows up and down, whichever way you prefer. I think that will do it right there. So what they're going to have you do in the instructions, one more thing that's a little different. I just did this, visualization, brought over a table, did the up-down if I need to, brought them over in a certain order. Then they say click on the Filter tab. There is a Filter tab in Table Builder. We did not use that in the basic class. We want to introduce it here. So the Filter tab is within Table Builder. What we want to do is filter down to vacation accruals. So we're trying to build in this condition where the accrual code name equals vacation leave. So what does that look like? Up top here, next to data, there's filter. I choose that. I can add a filter. Accrual code name, just alphabetically is the first one it has, but I could change that if I needed to. Equal to, I could change that as well if I needed to. But it's correct for what I need here. And what I said was vacation leave. This is a case-sensitive reference right there, so double check it and make sure you spell this correctly when you type it in. We do have to type it in. Vacation leave. You also have to choose add condition. Now when we show a slight filter in the basic class, we don't have to add a condition. It's not as big a form as this is. This one is allowing us to bring in a combination of filters versus just a single filter on a column. So that's why you add the condition. So it adds it down below here. Looks a little bit strange because it has this abbreviation, kind of the coded word behind the scenes in our data structure. TKACC summary accrual code name. So a bit abbreviated, but it's in there and it's equal to vacation leave. Let's see how you're still allowed to add more conditions if you want to, with ands and ors and parentheses. So this is a lot more complex than what you can do directly in a column. Maybe that's all I need for right now. I click OK. And we have that statement, which I could further edit with a pencil or delete without X. Going to click OK one more time. Circle, circle, waiting for that table builder to bring up my table, hopefully. We get this. And notice we get a little information box that says the sample data does not meet the filter condition. That's okay. That is okay. There's very few errors that are truly a problem. One that says get design failed and Java error. There's another Java error. Everything else that we encounter are usually just fine. They're based upon permissions or the system just being a little bit finicky. That's okay. This message is just fine. Doesn't mean my filter is wrong. It might be that Sean is not allowed to see leave, vacation leave. Or it might be that the system just doesn't want to show it to me right now. As long as I have those blue column headers, we're good to go. I can still work on that report and do whatever I need. It is bothersome that I can't see any data. That's okay. You just have to be super confident. I have to okay this. And I can see my data. I can see my content going across the screen there. And before doing anything else, I want to change my title up top. Put that up there. Down below I have my name, ID, primary job. Haven't saved it yet. I do talk about this down below here. Report title, vacation balances. You see save and view. So save and view is that icon up top that looks like a play button. That allows us then to drop in our file name, vacation balances, no spaces in that, and then description, vacation balances report. So just to finish off the report itself, first of all, that's this guy. So this is a regular save, and you can use that to just save the report, but it will not let you preview it as well. This does both. It saves and provides the interactive viewer. So I'm going to choose that first. Doesn't have a name yet. Now I'm going to call mine vacation balances 2 because I have one done already. Okay, so I'm going to put that in. You don't need a 2 on yours. Don't worry about the extension down here. The system will take care of that. You okay with that? It'll prompt you about the dates and say, are these the dates you want to use? Notice how it did not remember what I put in before? That's actually fine. We can leave it on today's date. You didn't really even have to change it to the 31st. That's okay. It usually defaults back to this anyway. Okay, that. And it's going to try to bring up the viewer. See this little guy up top, that little circle, waiting for dimensions. I'm going to get iHub viewer after this. Then you get the name of the report, vacation balances 2. And if I hover over that, it does say vacation balances 2 interactive viewer. So that's the viewer screen only. This one over here next to it, vacation balances 2 analytics studio. That is your development mode. That's your report studio where you make your changes. So just be aware what the 2 are, which is which. Here I see data. I actually do see data displayed on the report now. So despite the fact I got that weird message about the filter not being valid, I do see vacation leave all the way through here. So I was able to preview. So there's my report. That's what I have so far. And what Michael also requested was some formatting in certain cases, certain conditions. So here we have our available balance hours. I see a lot of 140s. If I go to the next page, third page maybe, I see some zeros right there. So for people who don't have any vacation left, they have zeros, he wants that to show up in bold. Have the number itself show up in bold. So I can do that with conditional formatting. We start talking about this step-by-step process on the next page, page 6. So available balance column is where I start and set it equal to 0. And when it's 0, you tell it what to do. Make it be for bold. So it looks like this. I come back in, I have to close this form. This little form I can barely read, that's this tab. You can always highlight over it to make sure it says interactive viewer, and you would close it down with the X. And you're back at your design. What you always want to do is start with a column you want to format. So in this case, I do want to format the available balance hours column, the number in that column, if it's 0. So I'm going to click first to select that column. Now notice this pops up again. Every click I make, this will pop up. It's okay, just work through it. I'm going to say okay, but it did highlight, right? Highlight it for me now. So the reason I do that, got to remember that the system is either looking at the entire table or at a specific column. Now when you're looking at the entire table, it looks like that. Hard to tell what column is highlighted because really the entire table is highlighted. And it's only 4 icons up top. That's a table right now. If I were to choose a column, any column, all the icons change. You double your columns, not your columns, I'm sorry, you double your icons, and you are looking then at one column. So we'll try it one more time. More icons. So be aware that a normal left click on the column identifies, hey, this is the column I'm working with. You always start there. I know in a lot of programs we right click. We right click on something to address it. The problem is if you haven't yet selected the column in this program and you right click, you're getting a menu that relates to the entire table, not just to that column. And it won't give you what you're looking for. So say looking at this column, then I right click. All the way down to the bottom, format. Conditional formatting. Format font is what you would expect, regular formatting. This is conditional formatting. And you get a little form that comes up and says, okay, you are going to format this column, available balance hours, because that's what I started with. Yep. What do you want to base it on? I want to base it on the same entry, available balance hours, but I could change it if I want to. Send that equal to a 0. And a little strange how this is designed. You format above that. So this is the condition, but then right above it you choose format, and then it will provide you options. So right at the top, I choose format. Not a lot here, but I can choose B for bold. And right away, see that goes bold, and I click OK, and then it shows bold right there. And if I hit OK, that's one condition applied to that column. Now, when you click OK on this, you will not get that little blue circle. It doesn't bother showing you that on the filters. But it's still processing. And hopefully when it finishes, I get a message, that's all right, and I might do my save and view again. And every time you go to save and view, it will bring up the parameters for the dates. It won't ask me for the file name again. It has that already. But I can OK that. Everything should look the same except for the fact that any 0 balances, the 0 itself should be displayed in a bold. Now see anything on first page? For second, but on third, it's kind of hard to see because the font's so small, but see right down there, zeros, 0, 0, 0. So it is working. It'll be a lot more evident when Michael runs this. As a PDF or so, you'll see it much bigger. Further, they're going to have to change the color of the name over here on the left-hand side. Make it green or blue based upon a condition that relates to this available balance hours column. So what does that look like? Well, that's when you come over here and you click first on the employee name column because that's the column I want to format differently. So always select the column you want to format. Then you right-click, still go into Format, Conditional Formatting. It knows it's formatting employee name, but I'm not formatting employee name based on the name itself. I'm trying to format that based upon the available balance hours on that same row. And here's saying something like greater than or equal to 80. What's that going to look like? It's going to be green. Is that a green color? You can make these bold. You can make it a different color if you want. That's okay. That's more like it. Looks like a teal color. I don't know what I chose. But I get that in place. And notice there's an add rule down here, which means I can add a rule, still regarding employee name. That doesn't change, but based upon, again, itself or accrual balance hours with a different condition. So if it's greater than or equal to 80, I'm going to make it green. If it's another range, I'm going to make it blue, purple, yellow, red. So you can actually just go down through here and change what the colors are. So that's what your plan is. You can delete that rule right there and click OK. So I just have the one in there. All this right here on your page 6 talks about applying conditional formatting first to the available balance, then also down here on the employee name. And then after that, you know what you have to do. If that report's done, then you have to make it available to the person in the system somehow. You have to publish it. So the bottom of that page 6, how to publish. You know how to do that. That's easy. I come back in here. Still up there. That's okay. Come on. Okay. Just got to save this one more time. If you forget to save, the system will prompt you and say, are you sure? When you close. When you close out of the report build after working it the first time, you're back in unpublished and you will not see the report listed. You have to refresh the list. So if I refresh it, then it pops up. My vacation balance is 2. I choose that. I choose to publish it. And you give it the name. And down here, description and label. So if you use description and label, the person running the report will not see this report file name. That's what you want. I'm going to kind of copy paste these a little bit, make it a little bit easier. My description could be a little bit more descriptive. Vacation balances right there. Spaces are fine in these. This would be the label that they would see in place of the report file name. And this would be the description accompanying that. And down below, default output type. We have PDF, Excel, and interactive. This is simply the default. They can still change it anytime they'd like. We choose PDF here. And down below, we choose our category. We choose Custom. Simply clicking on that row adds it to the currently assigned category, which is where the report's going to end up. And down below, always look down here, make sure what's going on. We're looking for Show Chart. That Show Chart is often displayed down here. So down below, you see it's not mandatory, but it's set to display. And that's going to prompt the user and say, do you want to see the chart? And then they're going to expect a chart when there is none. So we recommend take that Show Chart, edit that to not even display the prompt. So up here, display, I'm going to say false. So not mandatory, also don't display it. When I apply that, I do still want the hyperfine selector, the time frame. That's what you always want for all your reports. We save. So that's the publication of the report, which will return us now to the list of all the published reports. Those are all the ones already available in our system. And one more thing we have to do. Anybody know what's that last thing we have to do? See what you remember from the basic class. I've worked on the reports. I have published it. Yeah, profile settings, right? The access to the report. We have to provide that. Otherwise, Michael himself still can't get to it. So that's kind of coming back here to the setup somehow. I'm going to come back to that little home button. This is not under Common Setup. It's under Access Profiles. It's that first box in the upper left corner. Go into there. We go into Reports. Michael is one of our managers. He's in the Manager profile. So when this pops up, I would choose the Manager, edit that somehow, and I would always scroll to the bottom. Your custom reports always end up at the very bottom. You'll notice there's one in there already that I took care of. It's done. So I'm not going to bother loading this one up. It's not looking as good. But these that have the checks, those are already taken care of and addressed. So mine's already really assigned. Well, you'd add that one in. You'd save it. And then Michael should be able to go ahead and run this report. So I come out here for a second, sign out. Now, since Sean was in there and he was into setup a few different times, we're going to have Workforce Dimensions opening up multiple times in different tabs. So you see up here a little flashing one right here. There's Workforce Dimensions here. A lot of times what I do is I close down the one furthest to the right. For some reason, it likes that better. Not sure why. And I'm going to come back in here with Mr. Michael Martin and see if I can get to that report. And can I see some of those color combinations, like the bold and maybe the green or blue? So under Data Views and Reports, Report Library. I'm going to try to find that report in the right category by running the report. Custom reports right here. Vacation accrual balances. Here's my description for it as well. I select that. Prompts me for my time frame. I might want to say range of dates here. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to go out to the end of the month. Apply that. PDF might be fine. I could use something different if I'd like to. And I run the report. Goes into progress there as it's working on it. Panel says that on the right. When it's done, form pops up at the top to let us know it's complete. Usually it pops up by then when I say it that way. Come on. Being a little slow there. Oh, you can do it. It's not that big a report. I just get stuck. I kind of feel like I may. There it goes. Okay, just slow. I click OK there. Open that for the bottom. I might just have PDF open a little too much here. There we go. So vacation balances report run for everybody that Michael's allowed to see. We see vacation leave all the way through. We see some greens over here. That's when people had more than 80. So this 140 is going to be triggering that. And here's some zeros showing up in bold. That looks like it's for Kevin. A couple other people down here as well. Richard right there, Charlie, Laura. Might see some blue in here, but I doubt it. Usually the blue does not really pop up for us too much because most of our numbers say 140. But that's what we're trying to get to, something like this. So All of this in combination are quite a few pages in your courseware there. I come back to my screen. Since you've seen a lot of this already, we don't have you stepping through it as much. We have you kind of going through it all in one series of steps. So page 4, that's the hard copy page number on the bottom of your page in the courseware. Design and create the new report data object. Then create the unpublished report. The new piece right there is applying conditional formatting on page 6, and then still publish it. Add the report to the report data access profile. So some of these are abbreviated now. I couldn't fit them quite. And page 7 also reviewing the reports, Michael. Your log information is up top. Please be aware this username, I'm sorry, that's in capital I. That is an I. So it is Sean Ivan with a lowercase, I should say an I versus an L. Sometimes people think that that is an L. So it's Sean Ivan right there. So both Sean and Michael use the same password. Still that automate one exclamation point. So if you have any questions or concerns or problems as you're walking through these step-by-step, please let me know. Otherwise, give me a thumbs up when you get all the way through that and you see that it's working for you. All right, thanks. Okay, looks like people are getting there. Good. So remember the green check mark at that upper right-hand corner lets me know you've completed just these exercises through page 7. Please don't go any further. That's as far as you want to go. If you are having difficulty, though, with the instructions or having trouble figuring out what to do next, let me know. I can try to point you in the right direction. This will be one of our base reports, so we're going to add a couple of features to, so we want to make sure we have it up to a certain level of completion. And everyone else who's done already, just busy yourselves in the meantime, check your emails, but I'll call you back when we're getting there. Thanks. Grace, where are you right now? So are you looking at the form that says unpublished reports? Is that what it says at the top of the form? And maybe you haven't refreshed yet? Okay, so you can't do it from publishing reports. you have to go back to unpublished. So if it's not there yet, you have to make sure you go back to the unpublished listing. So try to go back to the common setup, unpublished reports. Because it starts off as unpublished, and then it will bring you to the published once you take care of that. So common setup, unpublished. That's where a report resides until you publish it. So start there, see if it's in that list first. If it's not there, then it probably means you have published it already, and maybe you're thinking of just making it available in the profiles. Found it? Okay, there you go. Sure, no problem. Okay, so it looks like people are getting there. Perfect. Well, some of you are catching up a little bit, but it looks like a lot of people got done with the report portion of it, and that's the most important thing. What I want to do is kind of introduce what our next topic is, because even if you didn't get through the entire publication yet, you can still kind of catch up with that a little bit afterwards. It's more working on the report and just seeing our data. Georgette, you can. Yeah, you could always go back in later and add it in. So it's unusual that it didn't take. Did it not, did you have any trouble with the system where it disconnected you kind of in the middle where it hadn't saved maybe? That would account for why it hadn't did it. It did freeze? Okay. So maybe it did not quite register the settings properly for you when you were working with it. So what you can do is you can always go back in. It doesn't matter if you've published it even already. Even if it's published fully, you can still go back to a published report and you can further modify it. So you can always go back in and check your settings. Let me do this. Let me try to show you my screen, what we ended up with again at the end. And now that Michael's looking at it, he might want a further change made to that report. Oh, let me see, clear the buttons there for people so far. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, so Georgia, if that was you. Yes, well, Georgia, once you're in published, the report will be in there. So find your report in that listing. It's probably called something like vacation accrual balances. You might want to filter for it at the top to try to find something that starts with VA or vacation. Once you find it, there's a button that says Edit Design right above it on the left side. So find Reports and choose Edit Design. That'll bring you back into the Report Studio for that report. Okay, sure. And Carolyn, let's see. You're having an issue with your computer, want to restart with new updates. Carolyn, is that your base computer, your actual computer, not the tenant? Because I don't think the tenant should be doing that to you. Otherwise, the rest of us should be having the same type of problem here. Computer only, okay. I apologize for that it's giving you difficulty. It's probably affecting the Adobe session as well, right? It's kind of dropping out Adobe. You're not able to follow along with me. Okay. So Carolyn, I'll let you decide what you want to do. If you want to try to reschedule to take the class later, if it's too difficult to follow along right now, you certainly can. We're not that far into it. So you could just cancel out if you want to. I could mark you as no-show, or we could cancel you out. That would be understandable considering you're having technical problems right now. If you want to hang in there, you're welcome to, but I don't know how much good it will do you if you can't play along and can't really hear what I'm talking about. We're going to take a break in about a little over 15 minutes, Carolyn. So it'll be a 15-minute break. So you're looking at probably 15 minutes of content, then a 15-minute break. So it'll be half of that hour. And then you'll still have another half hour where you might be able to kind of partially see what I'm doing. So I could try to keep you up. I could try to catch you up there during the break so that you're kind of where we need to be so that when you can get back in, you're ready to go. But I would still be worried that you're missing too much here, that you may not understand what you're looking at. Okay, no problem. That's all right. Thanks. All right, so let me come back to my screen here. Most of you got all the way through that. If you're still working on it, that's okay. But kind of look up and watch my screen for a little bit to explain what we're doing next. If I come back here, and for this first report, let me say to everybody, I don't have any little challenge exercises for this first one, but for the next one I will. So when you get done quickly with the exercise, you're waiting for other people to finish, I'll give you something else to play with that might challenge you a bit. Just don't have anything for this one. So here's the report we have. We're getting some bolds for the zeros. We're getting some greens, probably no blue colors because I doubt we have anyone with that situation. And Michael's thinking what would be really great is at the end of this report, if he could have at the very bottom here, for the available balance hours column, an average. What the average available balance of hours is for all the employees he has listed there. So that's his request. He says that to Sean, can you go back in there and add that in for me? I want to show the average of the available balance. We can do that. And this isn't too tricky. So I would say for those of you who are still maybe working on things, you might be still even in the report studio. We're going to get there anyway. So this one we usually do together. Let's all try to fix this, see if we can address it. Now if you're kind of in the process of publishing it, just keep going in that mode. That's okay. This is a little bitty thing, not a big deal. Let's try it. Let's see what we can do. So where you're going to find this, it's the very beginning of creating calculated columns. The instructions for this particular exercise are on page 9. But it's really quick. It's just page 9. We make the change, and then Michael goes and takes a look at it. So you might as well just do this one together. It's easy enough. So for those of us who may be logged in as Michael right now, reviewing this, we have to go back in as Sean. So whichever way you're in the system right now, try to be back in there as Sean Ivan. I'm going to do the same on my side. I'll bring this up. Come back in here as Sean. Now remember what our login is, just in case you don't have that on the screen. We are using Sean Ivan, and the password is still that automate 1 exclamation point to get in there as him. Sean's trying to get all the way back into the report to make another change to the report. So where are we going? Where do you think we want to head to if we want to make a change to a report that's already running in the system? Where are we going? Chris, got that? Good job. Right, published. Right. It's already been published. We never really go back to unpublished unless you're still back in that mode and you've still not published it. But this one we did. So let's try to get back there. We can still get there from the main menu. 3 horizontal bars up there. Choosing administration. Same way we got into setup before. Main menu, administration, application, setup. You make your way back into published reports. It's going to be in the common setup section, bottom of that first column. Try to find published reports. So this will be all the reports, big list here. All the reports we have available in our system, whether they were the Kronos reports initially or something we created. You have to find your reports. Best way to do that sometimes is to use the filter. That's in the upper left-hand corner, the second icon in. Choose filter. And even if you don't remember the name of it, way over on the right side, the last column on the right, where it says type, you could always click in there and type in the word custom. If you type in custom, you'll only see the custom reports. The system identifies any of your reports as custom. So I'm going to have 3 of these in here. You have 1. So it's probably just your vacation balances. So you choose that one. And up above there, you'll see 4 icons. One of those is Edit Design. That's what you want. That goes back to Report Studio. That's where I'm trying to get to. Back to Report Studio. So choose the report, choose Edit Design, then give it a moment to open that back up in the screen. We might still get that weird little box that pops up and says, you can't see the data, I don't understand the filter. That's okay. Let it open up first. There's my little info box, that's all right. You can still okay that information box to get it out of your way. So what we're being asked to do is address that second to last column again for another purpose, now for conditional formatting, but this time to summarize it somehow. So click on that column, the one that says available balance hours. Normal click to select it. So your icons change. Now you could use an icon up there this time. The third one from the right looks like a little Greek symbol, kind of like the letter E, but it's a Greek symbol. That is for aggregation. Or you could right-click and choose it from the right-click menu. Either way works. So I might right-click just to prove it's here. You'll see both the icon and the word aggregation there. So either way, select that, please. And the box is going to pop up and say, okay, what are you doing? It knows that we've selected already. It knows the column we were on, available balance hours. And then it says select function. And it's guessed sum, because it recognizes that's numeric. It says, okay, you want me to add that up? No, not really. I was trying to do an average. Hit the drop down. See if you can find average. You'll see quite a few things in there. Select average. And below that, you see aggregate on. And there's two options, table or group. Now table is highlighted. It's got a check. It's not grayed out. And you see it's actually selected on footer. So it assumes that if you're going to put in an aggregate or a summary, it's going to be like a grand total summary at the very bottom of the report. So it guesses footer. But just be aware you could place this type of information up in the header if you wanted to. Well, for our purposes, footer will work better. We are allowed to aggregate as well in groups, but notice it's grayed out because we don't have any groups in place yet. We will later, but not yet. One more thing. The bottom of that form, on the lower left corner, you see average, open parenthesis, and then that weird coded entry that represents available balance of hours. And to the right it says enter label. So for the label, our columns are not very wide. So you want to be careful not to type out average colon space. That's not going to fit. It's just going to chop it off. So maybe just put in an abbreviation for average like AVG. That might be good enough. I'm going to do this. AVG. Oops, something like that. So put that in as your label. That might be enough information so people understand what that value is. But still leave space for the value to show, the number to show to the right. Once you have all that defined, go ahead and click OK to that lower right. Might get a little circle this time. Might still get that information box popping up when it finishes processing. And the one change you might have here, it doesn't always show, but most of the time it does. Even if you only see your column headers, those blue boxes, you may now have a gray line right below that that has the label AVG for average, but no data. So it's kind of ready to go, but it doesn't have anything to show just yet. We don't necessarily have to save in view. We could if we want to, but we don't really have to. We can just save it, just regular everyday save. You have a little save icon up there, kind of right below the word format. Just save. So we've made a modification to an existing report that was already running in our system, which means we don't have to publish it again. We should just be able to tell Michael, go run it now. What do you think? How did it look? Let's go see. Try to run this now as Michael. So close out of here. File close. Sign out of the system as Sean. That's your main menu. Sign out. Double check to see how many times you have tabs for Workforce Dimensions. Maybe close down the extra ones you don't need. Leaving one for Michael. And this is Michael Martin. With that same password. try to run the report as Michael. Remember how? Main menu, just like you did before. Making your way to data views and reports. We're trying to get to the report library. Now this is only going to be here if we got all the way through publishing and making the report available to the report data access profile, right? If you didn't get that far before, you may still not be able to see the report. So you might still want to take care of that during the break. So I can see the completed one right here. I can try to run it again one more time by choosing run. We could do the rerun if you're already going in that direction. That's okay. I'm going to find it in my custom reports. Vacation accrual balances, select it. I might choose that same range of dates to the end of the month. You could choose a different one, that's all right. Well, when you go ahead and run this for whatever selections you want, take a look at the last row and let me know what you get. We may not all get the same number if we choose different criteria here. I'm going to leave it on PDF, that'll be fine. Use chat pods. Let me know what you get for your overall average. Remember, it's going to be in the footer, so it's going to be at the bottom of the last page. So mine looks like it's complete. There we go. That number looks familiar. 126.34. I think that might be what I get here too. Let's see. It's going to be on page 3. Yeah, you can see it's a little bit larger. The font is larger overall, so it does that for you. But you can also see if we try to type out the word average, it would have got smushed. It wouldn't fit very well. So yeah, it looks like 126.34. If you got different numbers, that's okay. You may have selected a different range or a different hyperfine query. That's all right. So it's not a sum. It's not adding all those numbers up. It's averaging them, which is mostly all those 140s averaged in with some of those 0 numbers we have. That's pretty much what we're getting here. But that is the simplest type of a calculated column. It's just an aggregate. It's a grand total of some sort. That's easy. Those are easy to build in. They are dependent upon what column you are looking at. If it's a numeric value, we have different things we can choose from. If it's text, you only have a few things to choose from. I could count that maybe, but I can't necessarily do a sum or an average. All right, so slight change there, but it introduces one of our next topics. So I come back here, we just did this one. This is all on our page 9. Let's talk about what's coming up here for the next one. So we'll just introduce this, and we'll go on our break. So we won't have you work on it yet. Adding a computed column to a report. So this is a little bit different. Just watch my screen here if you don't mind. Computed columns. So Michael has come again to Sean, making a request for a different report. Something about expected weekly hours and the overtime hours for the previous pay period. He's trying to look at that in combination. And also see some information about wages and the data for the costing, essentially. How much is costing for the regular hours versus the overtime hours and all that good stuff. So overall, these are the columns of information Michael wants on the report. He wants the employee's name and ID, primary job, similar to what we've had before, expected weekly hours and the expected weekly hours cost, overtime hours, and the overtime hours cost. So that's the request. I want all of that on a report. Okay? So Sean starts looking into things, maybe considering looking at the data dictionary, looking for what the columns are, what's available, and he realizes he can find these. He can find the employee's name and their ID. He can find their job. He can also find, I'm going to skip that wage for a second, the expected weekly hours and the overtime hours. But he does not have access to an entry in the data dictionary that says something like expected weekly hours cost or overtime hours cost. But Michael wants that on the report. So Sean might have to go back to Michael for a moment and say, okay, help me clarify what this means. When you say expected weekly hours cost, what does that mean to you? So he says, well, we take the expected weekly hours, which is a value we have somewhere in the system, and we multiply that times what the person makes per hour. Okay, so by what the person makes per hour to get that cost overall. And we might ask them as well, what about the overtime hours cost? Is that something similar? They said, well, kind of. For the overtime hours cost, we still multiply times the overtime hours, but not against their normal hourly wage. against their hourly wage times a 50% increase. So they get paid more for overtime, essentially. So that's the reason that we're bringing in hourly wage rates down below in one of our columns. Not because we're being asked to display that on a report. Michael really wasn't requesting that. He doesn't want to see that on the report. But in order to get to the costing information, Sean has no choice but to bring in the hourly wage rate to have that as one of our entries to multiply by to generate the costing. So that's sometimes another reason why you bring in some additional content. You have to build the information somehow, and you don't have it just readily available in the data dictionary. So that's the plan. We will still bring in, from the report data object perspective, the columns that do exist in our system, still create the unpublished reports, but then we're going to have to build additional columns for the costing where they don't yet exist in our system. So that is our plan. But before we get into the demo of that, I already have my report data object done, and I've done the unpublished report. I'm going to show all that to you after our break. So don't get into it yet, please. I want to show it to you first. But let's take our break first here. I come back in. It'll take me longer than 2 minutes. So I come back over here. Oops, I didn't mean to do it that way. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start that. That's going to bring us back at 2:44 p.m. East Coast time, 15 minutes from now. Okay, so go ahead, run away, take your break, please. Come back in 15, and then I will introduce a little bit more about that and show you how the computed column works before you start on it. Okay, thanks. Let's see, where am I going? Oops, right here. Okay, so we talked about the request from Michael. He wants something that includes costing, but Sean's already taken a look at the data dictionary and realizes there really isn't anything out there in the data dictionary, at least not for these two particular items, that shows costs. So he's going to have to build it somehow. But he has to start off by creating a new report data object the same way we normally would. Nothing different there. So that's still going to be the same process. This is no different than what you're used to. You're going to go into Common Setup, Report Data Object Management. I've already created mine. It's going to be an employee view, and you're going to name it Expected OT Hours Analysis. And don't forget down in Step 8 that you want to make sure you include all these columns. Don't forget about full name here in that first piece. And then all the other ones for the employee's ID, their job, and the hours and the wage. You want to bring that in as well. So this is really no different than what you're used to. All right. Beyond that, you want to create an unpublished report. This is also the same series of steps you've done before, no different. You're going to look at the prior 30 days for your range of dates there just to get a usable record set. Kind of look at time worked essentially for this one. And still bring a table in, bringing in the columns that do exist. You're still going to bring in the employee's name, and their ID and their job and their wage. Even though Michael said he doesn't need to see the hourly wage rate on the report, we don't care. We're going to bring it in because during development it might be useful to see it there so you can double check to make sure things are working properly. And we have our hours. So up to this point, up to step 10 right there, that is no different. Create a report, give it a name, preview, see what it looks like. What's different is what comes next. Adding a computed column. This is at the bottom of our page 11. This is new. You have not seen this yet. So I'm going to get back into my report in the design mode so you can see what it looks like. I come back into my system here. I'm in there as Michael. Let me get out of here. And come back in as Sean. I have fully published this already as well just to kind of get ahead, but it doesn't have all of my computer columns yet. I was going to wait and show you that. I'm going to show you the first one, and then you can continue from there. get back in here. Since it's published already, I'm going to go back into my published reports. This will be a brand new report for you, so you're still going to have to go through that process of publishing it. And we called this, what was it? I already forgot. Filter. This is why I use filter and I type custom, because I never remember what report I'm working on. Custom. It's this one. Expected and overtime hours and costs. Going to edit that design. So this is what the report's going to look like initially. Nothing special. Have a title up top here, expected OT hours and costs, you build that in. Employee name, their ID, their job. Notice your hourly wage rate is blank. Now it doesn't mean because we don't have that populated in our system. If I click outside this table for a moment, it's because I'm getting a message up here. It does say error, a little bit hard to see, it's kind of cut off a little bit, but here it says failed to retrieve some data from the provider's hourly wage rate. So when you see failed to retrieve some data and it identifies a column name specifically, that's permissions. That's what that is. That's the system telling us, hey, you're logged in as Sean. Sean is not allowed to see wages. That's okay. It's okay that he can't see the wages. We can still build in the calculations that we need. So we still need this anyway. We still need that hourly wage rate. But in the instructions, we're told to do is click on the expected weekly hours column. That is an existing column in our system. Now please be aware it really doesn't matter what column you start on. The only reason they're having you start there is because when you start on that column and you insert a new one, it'll insert to the right of it. That's really the only reason we're choosing that. And I don't have a right-click option for this. No right-click, you have to use an icon. The icon for calculation. That's the only way to get into it. So, expected weekly hours, I'm going to click on that. Get all my icons up top. Right-click will not help me in this case. What I'm looking for is the icon that's for calculation. It is directly before that little Greek symbol that we use for aggregating. So here's that Greek symbol. To the left of it, you have two vertical bars, or they're supposed to be columns actually. One is kind of a darker gray, it's filled in. The other one has a little plus sign next to it because you're adding a column. That's what it is. So it's this icon right here. If I hover over that, it's calculation. So we choose one column, then we choose calculation, and a form pops up. New computed column. So something you are building, some sort of formula. You give it a name. Now this column label is going to be the same as what we see in blue up top here, the label you want to see at the top of the column. So they're telling us to name this one. I'm going to go back on this side because the cat is sitting on my documentation. Expected hours cost. So that's what I want, expected hours cost. And it's going to be the weekly hours, essentially, multiplied by their wage. That's what we're trying to do. So expected hours cost. Going to type that up top. Now down below here where it says select category and select function, these are kind of on top of each other. It's kind of hard to tell what's happening. You do want to start with a category. Up top here where you're seeing is the word comparison right there, but there's a drop down to the right. So you always start there, you hit the drop down. This is breaking down the different functions by essentially the category, what type of functions they are. So we're not looking for a comparative function. We're looking for something that does math. It's going to multiply. That's all we're doing is multiplication. So choose math right there. And that'll change the list of functions down below. This changes the list down below. So see add in there now, ceiling, difference, mod, product. So those are your basic math and some other bit of content. We can also use advanced. We can always just use advanced anytime we want to type in the formula we want to use. We're going to do that. So I'm going to choose advanced there. When you choose advanced, it opens up the panel down below. You have some section in gray here which gives you a clue about how you should use this. These are not related to our content and workforce dimensions, but you're showing like a last name there with a concatenation symbol, an ampersand, followed by a comma space, followed by the first name. So last name, comma space, first name. And something else, it's a price there that's probably a numeric field of some sort. Multiply times the number. So what we do is down here where it says enter expression, we have to enter our expression down below. You don't have to type the whole thing. What you do is you use an open square bracket. That's what we're talking about back here. They say in the enter expression field, enter an open bracket. So it's that little square bracket you want. It's right next to the letter P on your keyboard without using the shift key, just by itself. That'll get you the square bracket versus the curly bracket. You don't want the curly. The square bracket will give us up a list of, or bring us up a list of the columns available from our report date object and from the report. So down here, I click in there, open square bracket, there we go, big list. But it's those names, right? It's those crazy big names that are kind of abbreviated, a little hard to understand, but if you look through them, you can kind of tell what they are. Right? That's full name right there, person number, primary job, expected weekly hours, that's one of them that I want to use. There's the hourly wage, and there's something about overtime hours. So I could choose expected weekly hours, click on it, and I want to multiply. So I put in an asterisk to multiply. You can put a space if you want, that's all right. So multiply by another open square bracket to choose what I'm multiplying by. I'm not trying to multiply times a constant number. I want to multiply times the wage of the employee for that particular record. So open square bracket, here's the wage. So again, that was not a column that Michael requested, but we're having to bring that in to generate the costing, to generate, in this case, an expected hours cost. So I choose that, and down below you have a validate in blue. You do want to use that to make sure the system understands what you are doing in case you had a typo or you messed it up. So choose validate. And all you're looking for is that expression is valid. Good. Click OK. And OK again. And there I have a new column to the right of the expected weekly hours, so that's the only reason I had started on that side, I should say, because I wanted that to the right. Could have built that on any column, honestly. It says 0 right now, not because there's no costing, but because I don't have any wages. Sean can't see the wage, so anything multiplied times nothing, you're still going to get 0. Michael should see numbers there. So that's how the first one works right there. Come back in. That's what these set of instructions are right here, creating a brand new one, new column that has some multiplication. And you're going to continue with that because we don't want just one costing value, we want two. So the next page, page 12, comes up here and says, okay, first of all, before you generate the costing for the overtime, you need to have a rate, some kind of a rate for what that overtime amount is. Michael had said it's not their regular hourly wage. It's their wage times like 1.5, 50% higher. So we want to generate that initially. So they have you create another computed column, I'll say, overtime hourly rates. The only reason you're creating this is to be able to multiply times the number of overtime hours to get the right money amount for that overtime. So overtime hourly rate is going to be math as well, taking our hourly rates and multiplying times 1.5 to get that increased value essentially. Once you have that, then you can do this one down below. Overtime hours cost is going to be that rate that we just created. So this one up top, overtime hourly, overtime hourly rates multiplied times the overtime hours. So we're building this one up here at the top of this page just to be able to use it down here in the next calculation to get the overtime hours cost. So that's what we're doing down here. This last one's going to be take the overtime hours, multiply it by the overtime hourly rate. So you can access, you have access to and you can see the other computed columns you have previously built in the report. So it's not just the data dictionary. I could build something for the purpose of using it in another computed column. So you're going to use it right there, do the multiplication. And then because you don't really want to show the overtime hourly rates, we're going to have you take that column and do a right click on it and hide it. So you still want it to be available there to get that math to work, but you don't have to physically show it. That's the trick. So you're going to create 3 computed columns, but only 2 of them you're going to display. One of them you can hide. Then you publish like normal, make it available through the Report Data Access profile, and have Michael go take a look at it and see how it is. So the rest of that is what you're used to already. So all of this is back here, starting off with a brand new report, just like before. This is our last full report build for this one. Start on page 10. Page 10, design and create the new report data objects. Unpublished, the computed columns, there's going to be a few of them there. Publish it, report data access profile, and review. So still most of this work was as Sean, and then check in as Michael. If you have any trouble, let me know. If you get done with this, and once I start to see people getting done with this, what I'll probably do is put up on the screen as well some optional exercises you could play with to keep you busy in the meantime if you're super fast at the exercises. Okay, thank you. Karen, when you receive that error, that's kind of a no good error. That's one of those that's going to get stuck no matter what. You're probably just early on in the process right now, I would guess. If you get that, exit out. Don't even bother saving the report. Just file close, and then just try to start it over brand new. I hate to tell you that, but as long as you're not too far into the process, it's probably better to go about it that way. Yeah, that Java null pointer exception, that's when it kind of gets stuck and it gets hung up, and it's not going to recover from that very easily. You could try to close it out and come back in if you want to save it. You could try that, but usually I find just starting that again will help. You don't have to go back to the report date object. That part's okay. It's just with the report studio sometimes you get that. Okay. Grace, that one's okay. Yes, when it says that it has an actual field name, like hourly wage rate, that's simply the system telling you that you're not allowed to see that data when you're working on the report. That's because Sean doesn't have the rights to see the wages in our system. So that's an okay message. It's just going to hang around up there. When Michael goes to run it, he will be able to see the wages. So yeah, that one's okay. There's only a couple like that. Java one's a problem, and some that say fully designed failed. Nope, you're fine. Yeah, you're okay. It's just the system, the way it reports the error sometimes. It would be better if it said more of a permissions issue than it said error sometimes. It does throw people off. So you're good there. Okay. And Karen, that's one Grace was just mentioning. That one where it actually talks about an actual field, like hourly wage rate, when it specifies the field, that's a permissions issue. So that's okay. That one will work around that problem, not an issue at all when Michael goes to run it. It's just that Sean's not allowed to see wages. So that's what that is. Sean can't see the wages. But unfortunately, it says error like that, and that does throw people off that it looks like it's an actual problem. It's more of a permissions issue in that case. Okay. Okay, so I'm just making a note here in the chat pod saying the original exercises that we're most concerned about are just pages 10 to 13, so that's what we want everyone to work on. But some of you are completing now, so I'm going to switch my screen over to the whiteboard to show you some optional exercises that you may want to play with. Not required, but if you want some little challenges there to play with to kind of stretch your knowledge, you are welcome to. So I'm going to switch this over here. So right there are some optional exercises, not a lot of explanation. We're deliberately not doing that for you. You get a heads up what you're trying to do and try to figure out how to go about that if you want to. Maybe trying to set it to landscape, sorting differently, highlighting certain employees who meet a condition. So I'll leave that as optional. I've built that into my solution file, and I'll show you the end results for these, even though it's not part of the actual exercises. Original exercises, like we said, in the chat pod, just pages 10 to 13. So the green check mark means you're done through page 13. That's all I'm looking for the check mark. All right, thanks. Sure, what I have on the screen right here are just optional exercises. This is not in your book. This is just to keep people busy who are finishing early, who may want something to play with in the meantime. So not part of the book at all, but you've seen most of this before, so you might be able to try to figure this out. So there's no steps in the courseware regarding this, but it's kind of a little bit vague there to see if you can figure it out. But our primary concern is getting through pages 10 to 13. That's what the green check mark is for. So I'll wait till about 80% of you get to that point, and then I'll start to review this and show you the optional exercises as well.
भाई ये अपना क्रोनोस का WFD का अपना ट्रांजिशन हो गया है क्या? करने वाले हैं नहीं करने वाले हैं? क्या है मतलब ट्रांजिशन इज इनिशिएटेड ये बता रहा है? तो गोले हुआ ही नहीं है तो भी व्हाट इज द स्टेट, करंट स्टेट? ओके। इसका कुछ रिन्यूअल आने वाला है, इसके लिए पूछ रहा था क्या करना है, देख रहा तो। कोई एक्सपेक्टेड डेट है कब तक कुछ होगा क्या है? कौन अजय अपना? हाँ, अगस्त इंडिया को लेगा। ओके। इसका सितंबर सितंबर या अक्टूबर में ये है रे, क्या एक्सपायरी हो रहा है सारे लाइसेंस, तो इसका रिन्यू करना है नहीं करना है पूछना था इसके लिए। कौन अरोरा बोलेगा क्या? वैभव, वैभव बाबा। ठीक है, उसको ईमेल भेज देता हूँ। और बता क्या बोल रहा है, कैसा चल रहा है, किस चीज़ का? कौन सा क्रोनोस का ट्रेनिंग है, WFD? ओके, मतलब क्या ये वेब बेस्ड है, कैसा है? उधर शाहिद को भी इसका इन लोग इन WFD का ट्रेनिंग दे रहे हैं वो लोग। बता रहा था परसों भाई, 4 घंटा 8-8 4-4 8-8 घंटा ट्रेनिंग में बिठा रहे हैं। हफ्ते में 1 दिन या हफ्ते में 2 दिन बिठाते हैं। उनका भी चल रहा है। और क्या बोलते हैं? कुछ नहीं। तुम्हारा क्या हुआ जाने का, कुछ मतलब? मैं नीचे बैठा था, अनुपम मिली थी। हम्म। अभी बाजू में ही है क्या? नहीं, वही अनुपम नीचे मिली थी। अनुपम नीचे मिल कर, अरे तुम लोग जगह डिसाइड कर कुछ क्या कुछ सोचा है, ईमेल आया है देख लेना। मैं उसको बोला भाई वो ईमेल का रिप्लाई भी हो गया।
Sherrod, in terms of the page definition, so usually you have portrait versus landscape when you're printing a piece of paper. So portrait goes top to bottom, landscape goes kind of left to right to give you more space for the columns. So it's usually under something called page setup. We don't normally cover that in the class, but you might be able to find it in the menus there somewhere. So see if you find something about page setup, and there should be an option for landscape versus the system is doing an automatic choice between portrait and landscape, which is why our columns are so narrow. That's the problem. And so much content wraps around then. So landscape will be the paper orientation, essentially, if it goes top to bottom or left to right. Left to right would be landscape. But if you look up page setup, try to find that in there. You should see it. Okay. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes there. So hopefully everyone's getting close to having that fully published and available in the system. And let me show you what we were going for overall, and I'll show you the optional exercises also, in case you're interested in how those look and how you go about them. I come back to my screen. I've gotten in the habit of building that in sometimes because I have found that people take a different amount of time to complete that exercise, and by this time you've learned a lot of features in the environment already, and you can kind of work on your own without needing the step-by-step sometimes. So this is my report shown in the report studio right now. For one, I made it landscape, so I made it wider. It's wider than it is tall, essentially, so things fit better. The names fit better. The primary job isn't wrapping around heavily. There's more space. So how I did that was under File. You have this option under Page Setup. We don't really cover that in either class, but it is there as you would expect. And with Page Setup, the system is normally on auto here. So in other words, the BERT tool decides for itself which way to place the information. And it tends to always guess portrait. It likes portrait a lot. But for me, I prefer to be able to read the content more so than have everything wrapping around. So landscape is an option for this right here. You can also individually size the columns, but it is a little tricky to do it. You have to start on the far left side, and every time you make a column wider, it makes the next column to the right that much smaller. So they all kind of have to go left to right to get everything just perfect all the way through. You can never just make one smaller. It's always making things bigger, which ultimately makes things smaller on the other one to the right of it. So it's tough to do, but landscape at least gives me more space. So I'm going to leave landscape there, click OK. And that's why I can see all this spelled out all the way across, and there's enough room. Of course, it does use up more paper, that's true, but sometimes the legibility of it is a little bit more important. I also had an optional content there of doing sorting. So that's up here under Data. We have Sort. You can choose an advanced sort, and just choose to put that in order by the employee name, because right now it's kind of all over the place, and that's never a good idea. You typically want your data sorted somehow. So by employee name and ID, just in case we have two people with the same name, ascending is fine on those. So that is right here. I can see B through W right there, even on the snapshot. And aside from all these, I'll show you the one last one afterwards, we still have our other content here. We had our expected weekly hours. Expected hours cost is the one you just built in, but it will have zeros. Overtime hours, we may or may not see anything right there, but our hours cost will still be 0. Ideally, those costing columns will have information once we run this as Michael. Now, one more thing you're seeing on my side is the blue. The blue's popping up there, where it says data entry clerk, warehouse clerk, shipping clerk. So that was the challenge. I was saying, okay, I want you to highlight people who work as a clerk. Somehow highlight them. Now, I didn't really say what to highlight. You could have chosen something different. You could have highlighted their name if you wanted to, but they had to be a clerk. And it wasn't just a clerk. It was many different types of clerks. We have the warehouse, the shipping, the receiving clerks, the data entry clerks. They're all in there. So we wanted anyone who works as a clerk. So let me ask, did anybody figure that out? Anybody figure out how to get that to work properly? It's a little tricky. You kind of have to go through variations so you get it to work the right way. Because sometimes you never know, well, can I use this? It is conditional formatting. Yep, it is going to be that, but it's going to be based on conditions somehow. Anybody figure out what the condition is? What would my condition be? I could do it on employee name. Sure. Would it be if the primary job equals clerk? That I want to make it blue? Would that work if it equals clerk? Yeah, we're going to have to use a like. And when you use like, you typically need to use a wildcard. What wildcard symbol do you think would work best here? We usually have a couple to choose from. Anybody know what works best here? If you kind of played with it, you may have realized that when you were choosing, you didn't do it. Karen, you're thinking ampersand in there? Not the ampersand in this case. And it's not the asterisk either. It's going to be the percent sign. That's what's understood by the BERT tool. It uses a percent sign, kind of like SQL does, for the unknown characters. And this is also case sensitive. So that's one more thing that could throw a monkey wrench into this. So I kind of have to look at this and say, okay, well, these look like they're capital C's all the time. So what this really was going into that column, primary job, doing a right click, conditional formatting, primary job, So I want to format as well. Primary job is like, so I want to put like in there. And then over here I have spelled in a percent, then the word clerk with a capital C, and another percent at the end. So something like that is what I'd have to do. I need a capital C. If I had a lowercase c, it wouldn't work. If I used asterisk, it would not work. I don't want spaces on either side of the C or the K there because you don't know what's there. There may not be spaces. All right, so that accounts for anything on the other side. So that's what I'm doing. I'm building that in and then making that blue essentially based upon that. So like clerk. That's how I'm getting the blue. So just to show a little bit more so about what we can do with the conditional formatting versus just putting in greater or equal to a 0, you can use a like function. All right. Sherrod, if you did that combination, if you did equal and then you had the percents, it would be looking for a literal value that actually had the percent as part of that primary job name. Does that make sense? So you'll be looking for something that actually said percent clerk percent. That equals always looks for a literal. Yep. So you want to be careful that if you're using wildcard symbols, this is pretty much in general with programs, if you're using wildcards somehow for unknown values, you typically need the word like in there for the actual operator. Okay. So did we run this as Michael? Did anybody get data for Michael where you saw costing? Did it show up? Let me see. I gotta come out of this and see. I didn't test mine yet. Shot, you did okay? Let me come back out of here. Sean doesn't run this. Michael does. Closing down these other combinations. Let me ask, who had the most overtime? Look through your report. Run this as Michael. Let me know who had the most overtime out of that group. There's one person in particular that had a lot of overtime. I think. If I'm thinking about the right class, I think so. Karen, you got zeros for overtime costs? But were there a couple people? Look all the way through there. Usually somebody in there does have it. Not a lot, but maybe a couple. They have to have overtime hours in order for them to have an overtime cost. So if there's nothing in the overtime hours column, you're right that there will be a 0 for the costing. So if you scroll through there, see if you have anything further out in the report. I'm going to try to come in here as Michael, see if I can see anything. I think we're trying to run this for the previous pay period, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what they asked us to do? Let me see. I think so. That's right. You're getting 0 too? Hold on here. Previous pay period. All right. Let me see. Maybe I'm wrong. So Karen, are you running this as Michael or still as Sean in the development? Yeah, let's do previous pay period. Let's try to do previous pay period. You're doing it as Michael. I'm going to try previous pay period as him. So report library. So I'll go back to the work that's already been done here. Because today, current day, we probably may not have any data. Let me see if I run reports. Timekeeping, expected and overtime. Let's see, previous pay period. All home, PDF is fine. So if we try previous pay period on this, I might be wrong about this, but I thought we'd get something. Yes, see, I'm getting some information here. So if I look at this, I have overtime hours in certain cases for certain people. Looks like George right there. About 2.5 hours, so did these people. Yeah, try previous pay period. See if that makes a difference for you. And then that's when we're going to see something on the right column, because you're absolutely right that overtime hours cost will remain at 0 if there are no overtime hours. But if there are some, then we should start to see that number go up because it is taking the overtime hours multiplied by, got it, there you go, multiplying it by 1.5, right here, hourly rate times 1.5, so like 50% higher than what they make. So you might even have to spot check that, use a calculator, do the math the right way. So there might be a bigger number in here. I think there is, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they're all 2.5. Let's see. Here's an 8. Who's that? Daniel? It's hard to follow this across. Yeah, it's Daniel right there. Okay, about 4 pages. That's my 32. That's what I'm thinking of. It's Margaret. There you go. Yes, Margaret's getting a lot of money. So Margaret Miller, she's one of our mechanics, and she's got over over $2,000 worth of overtime for the. But there's somebody's probably going to have to get on top of that and say, what is going on? Why does Margaret have that much overtime? So that's one of our bigger numbers right there. We call that like an outlier value very often if we're looking at data in general. Something that is much different than the expected. Maybe 2.5 hours, not a big deal. 4 hours, maybe not a big deal for someone being busy. But 32 hours of overtime, that seems like a lot. So I still see my blue here. Mine is still landscape. Yours might be going top to bottom. That's okay, but this is what we're going for. These costing columns that initially were not available in our system. The data dictionary did not have that content. It's not an existing column in our structure. We can build it as long as we have our hourly wage. And we don't even have to show this hourly wage rate. We could have hidden that as well, just like we did the hourly wage times 1.5, the overtime hourly rate. You could hide this one as well because maybe Michael says, I don't need to see that. I just want the hours and the costing. All right. So let me just check in here with everybody. Do me a favor. I know some of you are just getting towards the end of that and getting this available. Give me a thumbs up if you got this working all the way. We're able to see some data there. Got it working as Michael. Just because we come back to this for 2 other portions, and if it's not working quite right just yet, we probably want to take a look at that. It's okay if yours doesn't have the blue and if it's going right as well. Here. So Georgette, Kim, Lauren, just let me know, where were you at? Did you get through the report maybe, but maybe didn't get a chance to publish it yet? Okay. So hopefully we have something that's at least in working mode that we can still play with. All right. If you didn't get all the way through publishing yet, that's okay. You can do just good sizes. Not a problem. And keep in mind this tenant is still available to you later on, that you could play with it later on to add the extra settings if you want to. Not a problem. That's what that is. So where are we in the book? Let's see. We're getting there. I come back to my system. Oops, where am I going? I want to go, no. Oh, this keeps doing this to me. There we go. Reviewing the report right there, running those previous pay period, see our data. Our next topic talks about groups and sections and totals. Now this is not too difficult to do, especially the group and the section, I'm sorry, the group and the total especially. Easy. Easy to do. We already have the column available on the report, and we choose to group by it, and it kind of does it right away. And a total would just be a subtotal that you add in at the group level. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate this, show it to you. We're talking about it on the next page. This is on our page 15. Same report we just worked with. Expected and overtime hours and costs. Goes decided he wants it broken down a certain way. Not just record after record after record all the way through, but instead blocking it out by the job. So anyone, an assembler or an accountant or a baker, to be all grouped together in one block of content. And then we're going to generate some totals, like count how many people work as accountants, how many people are assemblers, how many people are managers or mechanics. So each of those blocks of content, how many people work in those jobs. So this first part is right here, still on that same page. Add a group 2 report to each group in the report. So notice it's only a few steps. It doesn't take long at all. I'm going to show you what that looks like. That's on my page 15. If I come back in here for a moment, just watch my screen. Let me come back out of here, log back into Sean. Oops, where am I going? No. I'm in here, Sean, right? Wait a second. Sean doesn't run reports. He gets into administration. There we go. Wrong person. I want to get back to that report, the one we were just working on. So you might still be in here already. You can just kind of get ready to get right in there. Mine's published already, so I have to get back to it through the published reports. And if I filter on this and type something like EXP for expected, there it is. Expected and overtime hours cost. Going to edit its design to go back into the structure and see about adding a group. So I edit the design. And notice I get this. Now this can be bothersome. Before I had data, now I don't have data. You get sample data is empty. I can okay that. It's not a big deal that I could work this way. That's all right, I could work this way. But I will tell you to display this properly to you and have you really get what I'm doing. I don't like that there's no data here. So sometimes what you can do, you just close it and open it back up again. Sometimes on the next pass, it actually looks better and it brings back the data. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do File, Close, and I'm just going to open it again. Edit Design. So when it goes blank like that, sometimes this helps. Notice how that blue circle, you can't see it, but it's taking longer to open. It took longer to open that time. So now it looked back to my data. It's almost like it didn't refresh the first time, and now it did. So there's my report. I still get the message up top, failed to retrieve some data from the provider, hourly wage rate. We're always going to see that. It's on the preview as well. Looking out here, I'll see this on this side. So it's right there in pink at the very top, and that will be there. That's okay. That's just because we're showing right now. Down below there, I see a combination of people who work in different capacities for the company: promotional merchandising manager, apprentice welders, sales associate, RNs, mail clerks, master welders, all these people right here, all in a big bunch. I don't have any breakout of that content. What I want to do is take this primary job and group by that to break it out. So I'm going to close down my interactive viewer to get back to Report Studio, and I find the column Primary Job. I click on that, and I can right-click on it. If I right-click, see Group at the very top right there. If I choose Group, I can either choose to add a group or add a section. I'm going to add a group, so I choose Add Group, and really that's all there is to it. You choose the column you want to group by, hopefully a column that makes sense for what you're trying to do, or you'll have multiple records for each one of those values, and you choose Add Group. And what it's going to do is take that column, move it all the way to the left, and break out my content. So you see assembler, I just see one person right there, associate mechanic, one person, data entry clerk, one person, department manager, one, sometimes more than one, manufacturing managers down here. It'll look better when we're looking at actual data. If I come up here and preview one more time. The first page may not be the best. Our first page has some kind of generic entries like Acme employee, Acme manager. Let's go to the next page. There's the apprentice welders. So see all those people? All those people work as apprentice welders. And if that continues to the next page, if the group actually breaks between the pages, so there's still more people on the next page that are apprentice welders as well, it will repeat the column header. So I see it start here, but it only gives out the J. Go to the next page. There's the rest of them, all the way through to Wilson. So all those people are apprentice welders. Assembler 1 is just there. Associate mechanics, about 4 people. Only 1 assistant manager. And then we start with our bakers right there. And that continues on to the next page. Keeps going all the way through that page. We have a lot of bakers. That page as well. And about 4 or 5 pages of bakers. More than that, actually. Here it gets to bakery managers at the top, finally. Benefits manager, business analyst, butchers, CNs, and so on. So that's the breakout by group. And what might be great is if I could actually figure out how many people work as a baker, how many people work as an assembler, as an apprentice welder. We can do that pretty easily. If I close down my viewer, what I want to do is take a column here and somehow count it. Now, they don't really tell us in the instructions what column to select. If I come back here, What I just did was this. I did the add group up top, so that's what I have in there so far. And we say adding a total to each group in the report. So you say when you're in edit mode, which I am in, they say click the last column in the reports and then choose aggregation. You can do that, that's okay. We do only have one record per person here. But I want you to consider that sometimes if you're looking at different kinds of data, like you're looking at schedule content or time card information, in those cases, you could very easily have more than one record per person. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to count. Are you trying to count how many people are on the reports or how many records there are? In this case, it doesn't really matter. We are trying to count, I should say, the records. So I don't have to be overly cautious with this, but just consider that. If anyone ever says they want an employee count, what do we want to do? If we want an employee count, what's the best way to do that? Anybody know? On something like a schedule report or a time card report. What's the best aggregate to use for an employee count? Think about aggregates like sums and averages, maximum, minimums, all those. Anybody know what that might be? No? I thought maybe somebody would have it there. It's a count distinct. Count distinct. A regular everyday count will count every occurrence of the record you tell it to, or the field you tell it to. But a count distinct, let's say I have one person in there who has 5 records. If I want to count that person just once, I say count distinct, usually on something unique to the employee, like their employee ID. Because you could have 2 people with the same name. So a count distinct on employee ID, something like that, is the best way to do an employee count. That's not exactly what I'm going for here. So I could actually count on anything in there. It is 1 record per person. We're simply trying to count how many people work in that job position. So how would I do it? I'd come back here. I'd find something here. I'll just do it like the example says, overtime hours cost on this side. I'd click on that. I would choose either that little symbol up top, that little Greek symbol for aggregation, or right-click and choose it. Either one does it. Now it comes up with a sum, and the reason is because I'm looking at the numeric column. But I'm not trying to add it up this time. We're trying to do a count. So notice you have count distinct right there. I don't really want to count distinct in this case. I want to do a count. Regular everyday count of how many entries are there. Because we're going to put it in the group section, it knows to count it per group, per position. So I choose count. You see down here, aggregate on. We had used this before to generate our average in the vacation accrual balance report. You see table's still there, and table has the footer highlighted to show this at the very bottom, count of all the employees in the entire report. Group is here now as well. It's not grayed out. And group defaults to header. And the reason why is because you have assembler 1 up here, and there's plenty of space to the right of that. So we're saying, do you want me to just put it up there? We could. So I think we will leave that in the header. That'll probably work best. And down here you have count overtime, hours cost right here, and your label. Now I have maybe a little bit more room, it depends. It's still going to be hard to get the word count in there, so a lot of times I'll just put the number sign up there, like number of people. How many people are there? Number. That's my habit when I don't think I have a lot of space. You could put a partial value in there if you'd like to, that's fine. I click OK. Notice up here I see number 1, number 1, number 1, number 1, 2. There's 2 people there as facility supervisor, it looks like, Craig and Jay. A little further down, there's 4 people, manufacturing manager. And when I look at the real data, by doing my viewer, I see there's 12 people here, there's 10 people there, there's 5 people there. Get further into my data. Apprentice welders, it's way over there, over here to the right, 39. There's 39 of them. If I can find my bakers, let's see how many bakers we have. 147. And I also have a summary at the very end of the entire report in my table footer. 2 right there. These last people, 7 of which are working as warehouse clerks. So that's a group with subtotals. Pretty easy to drop in. We've seen the aggregate before. The grouping is all of 3 or 4 steps. What's next, though, is that they want you to add a section for code. So I'm going to say what I have so far. I kind of already did. They want you to section by what am I looking for? Primary location. And the problem is we don't have that yet. You were not asked to bring that in when you first built the report data object for this report. That's when it's inconvenience, right? When they say, oh, I need another column. I want you to use that for, in this case, the sectioning. We don't have it. I have to go get it first. That's what this is talking about. Figuring out, first of all, what's the report data object, going back into that report data object, editing that to bring in primary location path. So that's your first step. Go get that. But then apply section by. So, a little bit tougher to do. We did something like this in the basic class. But I have to kind of say, okay, I have this done so far. I'll close out of there. Now, the great thing is right here. When you're looking at your published report and you have the name of that report, remember that way over here on the right side, it's got this report data object name. It tells you what the name is there. So you don't have to worry about trying to dig into the report definition and figure that out or trying to remember it. So I can see it right there, expected OT hours analysis. That's the report data object that is serving as my source content for this report. So I have to go back and get to it. So I go back to my home icon. Back to common setup, back to report data object management. Thought we were done with that. No, not when you need more columns. I'm just going to cheat a little bit. Scroll down here. Expected OT hours analysis, there it is. Going to click on it and choose edit. I need to add something to this. We look at the warning message. It knows we've used this already on a report. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. Do we want to continue? Yes, we're trying to fix it. So down here are all the columns we have in place already. The employee's name and ID and weekly hours, the wage, the overtime hours, just like it did before. But we're missing one that we want. So we choose add. And in that column name, we type in location. Oops. What I call it? Primary location path. This one right here. Is that what it is? Primary location path. Yep. Make sure I'm looking at the right one. So I choose that, and I add a column. That's the first step. I have to add the column to the report data object, so then I can access it in the report. So I save it there first. And the next step of this is go back into the report and somehow add it to the report so I can use it for some purpose. That's back in to my setup page. The report's already published, so I'm going to find it there. So a little bit of back and forth. That gets it a little bit more confusing to work through this. And I try to get back in where I was a few moments ago. The expected and overtime hours and costs. Edit that report. Now, I might want to remember when you come back in here, it's a little tricky to figure out, am I looking at the table or am I looking at a column? You need to be looking at the table. And when you initially open up the Report Studio, you are looking at the entire table. How you know that? Ooh. Okay, Grace, no problem. Thank you. Oh, she's gone. What was I saying? How you know that? Oh, yeah. How you know that is because you have these four icons. See the little trash can right there? This little chart icon, this edit, and the properties. That means you are looking at the entire table. That's exactly what you want because you're trying to get back into Table Builder. Now, what can easily happen is you can accidentally click on the table somewhere or click in a column. If I click in the middle of this accidentally, I just highlighted that column. So I'm no longer looking at the table, I'm looking at that column specifically. So what if that happens? How do I get back to normal so I can get to the table builder? I have to go above these headers. So see how you have the trash can there and all these icons, and right above all those icons is this little gray line and extends all the way across. It's even cutting off my error message. This whole panel here deals with the icons available for whatever we have highlighted. So if I click in that blank section right above the blue highlights, the blue headers, I should say, if I click right there, it highlights the whole table again, not just the column. And then I can get to those icons. I can use that little pencil right there. That's my edits. Or I can right-click on any column header at this point and choose Edit Data. Either one of those gets me to table building. That's where I'm trying to go, back in here, because I need to get to this to bring this over. So I get to it, and I move this over to the right to make it available in the report. I okay that. It's going to add it in somewhere. Over there on the right-hand side. Doesn't show me any data right now, but that's okay. So in the book, when they talk about this, having to add this in, adding a section to the published report, they tell you to go into the report initially. They do mention just going into right-click on the report table and select Edit Data. That's with the assumption that you are still looking at the highlight on the table. Just be aware, if you clicked first, you have to click above it to reset the icons. Then that'll work. So I'm trying to bring over primary location, and then I'm going to try to section by it. So it's in there. Now what can I do is I can click on that column. Just like we did a right-click to group, I can right-click, and it's kind of considered part of grouping, but it's Add Section. Add the section. It's kind of a primary group now. It goes all the way across the top. So see this big entry at the very, very top there? There's nothing for the first one with kind of a blank value, but then you see the jobs within that location, the bakers, the jobs down here. If I take a look in my viewer window, I still get my message up there, that's okay. But you over here see Acme Company, Acme Plant, Acme Admin. There's nothing there really for that content, but if I go out a couple pages, I start to see some better information. There's the Metropolitan Plant, the assembly. Within assembly, we see quality testers. We see the apprentice welders, department managers, draftsmen, interns. These are from, I should say this is changing up a little bit. This is assembly right there. This down here is machine shop. This one's the receiving plant. So it's really working as a primary grouping, but it's in its own section. That's the difference. It goes across the top of the panel, and that provides us some additional functionality as well when we try to look at our charts afterwards. So that's what we're trying to do. Add a group, provide totals on that grouping, then add a section based upon a column you still have to add in and make available. So all this is back here on your pages 15 into 16. Just those two pages right there, please. I'm sorry, it goes into 17 when Michael takes a look at it. 15 to 17, Michael takes a look to run it and see what it looks like, how it looks different. So come back here on the screen. Here are the buttons for you. Put this back up here. Okay, so right there, 15 through 17. Please go ahead and work on that. Just like normal, let me know if you have any difficulty or have questions, and a green thumbs up when you are done. Thank you. We're getting there. Georgette, I'm sorry. I stepped away while you were working. Let's see. Can this report be built to include pay codes, hours, employee rate by location, or pay group? Yes, you have quite a few other things you can use. Right now, because we're focused on specific content regarding, what are we looking at here? Some of the overtime hours, actual hours. If we brought in some extra information, like those right now are groups of pay codes to a certain extent. Like the overtime hours is a combination of pay codes in our system, but you do have additional ones in there that you can get to. So you can, if you look through the list of columns in there, you can get to quite a few things. It takes a bit, but yes, if you played with it some, you'll be able to find data in there. Sure. That's the trick sometimes, is just getting used to how the data dictionary is designed and what's in there. And I will say as well that we're working on some online help or documentation to go along with that to help people navigate that data dictionary, because there's a lot of content in there. There's over 1,200 columns. All right. I'll be quiet, let you all finish, and then we'll see what's next. I don't have any challenges for this one, I'm sorry. But yeah, give me a thumbs up when you're just done with those pages. Thanks. Georgette, how do you know when it's completed? Well, I would think that they're going to post it somewhere. So usually on a community, you might see a post on community for that, or in the documentation that we have online on Knowledge Map Live. So they're probably going to start to make it available somewhere. I haven't really seen what the method's going to be to provide it yet. So I'll try to keep track of it as best I can. And I actually have all the contact information for all the people that attend these classes. So we could probably post that out if we needed to, or give everyone like a heads up that it's out there. So they're still in the process. Ideally, it's going to be just set up as something online, like online help within the program, which you kind of already have in place, but something more evident in the system. But I'll see if I can find out anything more about it. I'll just reference somebody who was working on that, see if they have an idea yet. So I'll let you know. Sure. Okay, there's my 80%. Good job. So when you ran that as Michael, did you notice anything? It kind of depends. It depends upon how you have Adobe working. It depends on different versions of Adobe. Will show things differently with the sections and the groups. So let me show you on my side. It might be similar to what you have, or you might have a different variation. So I come back to my screen here. I didn't run it as Michael yet, but I can. I come out of here. Close that guy down. Close this. And then come back out of here to log back in as Michael. Okay, if I run this as Michael to see what it looks like. Ashrat, let's see, when you say if you want to work on an existing report, do you mean an existing Kronos report? Are we trying to make a copy of it or such? Might be a custom one? Okay. Not necessarily something that shows you all that. Okay, by somebody else. You could probably open it, though. If it was custom on any level, I believe you should be able to physically open it inside BERT to take a look at it and see the content. Have you tried that yet at all? Have you tried to just open it up, maybe? If they're standard, that they come with the system, if Kronos actually developed it for you, they may have made it standard so that you can't really open it. But if somebody else did, like just another end user essentially, it must have been left as custom. So ideally, you would be able to go in there and open that up. It really wouldn't have any other settings populated somewhere about what they were necessarily. And what would I do for this one? Is previous paper over for this? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so here's my report. We see our sections across the top. I see administration. Data looks a little bit better when running this as Michael. Sean was able to see a lot of kind of generic data we had in our system that wasn't really populated fully. We see some better information here as Michael. And depending upon what version of Adobe you are using, you might see this bar that kind of slides down. So like one of 6 up top here. And it's got that little icon right before the magnifying glass, which is a table of contents. So this shows up differently depending upon what version of Adobe you are using in your system. But if I click on this one with that toolbar essentially, it will show me the combination of the sections and the groups with those headers essentially, those labels, and can be used for navigation purposes. So if somebody wants to go all the way down into the metropolitan plant, they want to look at the facility supervisor, they can click on that, and it goes right to that content. So it's usually at the bottom of the form, but it's right there. So see Justin. So that's a possibility. It used to be in earlier versions of Adobe, it was a panel that opened up on the left-hand side and didn't overlap your content, so it's a little bit easier to see what was happening. But now the newer one is one that pops up here from this. Could be a little different than what you see on your system. That's what we're looking for. That's what we have overall. Some of these carry over from the prior settings. There's 33 apprentice welders right there, but that was also adding up the other people. Draftsman here as well, and at the very end, I should get the total of like 700 something, I think. Oops, what do I get here? Oh, just 97. This is not Sean. This is Michael. Michael only sees 97 people here in total. So our grand total right there, about 97. All right. We have one more topic here before you're allowed to run away. Now, before I have you work on that or even have the demo happen, what I want to do is just redirect us. I've been doing this with my classes lately. It seems to work better for people to get this out of the way now and then not have to worry about it as you run away out of class at the end of the day. There's an evaluation, there's a survey that goes along with our classes. So let me show you where this is. We found out earlier today that it sometimes has to be refreshed because it's the same form you pop up in the beginning of class to get into the class environment. And it won't refresh and show you the survey until you hit refresh or exit and come back in. So let me show you where this is. Oops, I think it was in there. And I just closed it. Wait a minute. Where's my little, this guy's what I'm looking for. So this is the new method for accessing the class. You saw this to get into the environment before. And when you got into there, you got into the class environment, you opened up the class. you would have gotten a My Class option to click on. So you click on My Class right there, and it opens up a form. And initially it may have just opened up the form that showed you enter class, launch tenants, and maybe get help. It may not have given you the survey yet. So you might have to refresh the form or exit and come back in to get this to pop up. You should be able to get to enter survey now there in the pop-up to respond to that and let us know how the class went. So please go ahead and take care of that if you don't mind before we get going here. Then we'll finish up with our last topic. So it's where you went into Knowledge Map Live initially to get into the class, but now there's an enter survey option right there. And it might be listed underneath the instructor name and date. I'm not sure if they're still doing it that way, but they did before. If so, it's going to be under today's date, being the 23rd for my name. So something like that might be what you have to reference. And yeah, go ahead and give me, whoops, I'm sorry, let me clear those for you. Apologies. Clear. There we go. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up once you are able to complete the survey. Thank you. We just want to get it out of the way. And then we'll review the charts. Georgette, it's where you went into class earlier today. So you went in through Knowledge Map Live. You went into the My Class option, and initially this morning, or this afternoon I should say, it probably only gave you the options to enter Classroom and launch tenant. But now at this point it should have updated. You might have to refresh it if you've been in there the whole time, or exit and come back in. But it's in Knowledge Map Live through the My Class option, the pop-up window that comes up. There's an enter survey right there now. So we're towards the end of class, so it should be available now. Sometimes they don't show at the very beginning of class, but they wait till later. This is our newer method when you are trying to get into the class environments and get to all the content you need. Okay, looks like almost everybody got that done. Thank you so much. Those of you still finishing up, thank you as well. I'm going to start to introduce the last topic we have here, which talks about charts. And like I said before, I make lousy charts. They're no good. But I will try to demonstrate them as best I can to give you an idea of what you can do. Karen, you finished as well? Thank you. All right. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to close some of these guys. These are my other reports. Back to the documentation. So adding charts to reports, that's our last topic. This is it. You got there? Michael has realized that Sean has the ability to add charts into the reports that he's built for him. So he says, great, I want charts. So here we have the step-by-step, how to add a chart to a report, review the content, and the next one is how to add a chart to a section of a report, like we have available in the expected hours. So we do this one first, insert in a bar chart into the vacation balance report. So tell all the settings right there, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So let's see, if I come back into my environment, I'm in here as Michael right now. I'm going to have to come back in as Sean. Michael can't create the chart on his own. That's something that Michael has to create. I'm sorry, Sean has to create. So we log back in as Sean and try to make our way back to the report. I'm going to go back to the vacation accrual balances first. That's the easier one here. They're both published already, so that's my go-to. Filter right there. Oops. Vacation. And this one. Edit the design. So for this report, we have record after record after record. There's no groups in here. There's no sections. So I really don't have any other choice but then to just choose Insert Chart from the menu bar at the very top. It will make one chart. I still get the message. That's okay. But up here, I can go to Insert and select Chart. Oops. So I go there. I'm on the wrong page. Hold on. I'm so bad at these, I can't remember how to do it off the top of my head. All right. Insert chart. I'm going to go for a bar chart. That's the easy one. And with the bar chart, I get prompted. What do you want for your axes? For the X and Y, X goes across the bottom right there. We're going to say for this one, it's going to be our primary job. Not going by name this time. That would be just too many entries. So the primary job right there. And for the Y-axis, we might say the available balance of hours in summarizing that. So there are two settings we need for a bar chart, two entries. You click OK, and it's going to build some kind of a structure. It may still not show me any data because it's doing the same thing for my table. Might give me the error again. That's all right. I can see there's some kind of a structure here. What I can do is right-click in there to get into its properties. So it has property settings that open up on the right-hand panel. So way over here, we can change the type of chart. We can check out its chart area to see about some settings we can modify. So in here, we can change the title if we want to down here. Total vacation balances by job if we want. I don't really need to bother with any other settings on that form. It's a little bit tough to see this, but at the bottom of that, there's two buttons. Sometimes what you have to do is resize this just to be able to see it properly. There it is. If I resize and size it back up again, here I see apply and close. I want to apply first, so it saves it. Then I close. And what should happen is it should change this title over here. Total vacation balances by job. So my data still doesn't reflect any content, but it is paying attention to some of my settings. I'm going to close that form there. I'm going to save that. That's a chart added into the vacation balance report. I'll show it to you afterwards, show you what it looks like. In the meantime, though, I'm going to go for that other report. The expected, the one that has our groups and sections. Add a chart into that one. This one's going to be a bit different because we have a section. And the section, like we said, it's very similar to a group. But since it is its own independent area, you are allowed to build charts into the section. I can't do that in a group header, but I can do it in a section. So if I click first in the section where it says primary location path on that row, watch the icons are going to change. I have 4 there right now, which is the entire table. I click in the section, and I have 3. So 3 that are relevant to the section. And what we have here, if I can start from the right, so they're sorting. This one here is about deleting the section, which I don't want to do. This first one, though, is insert in a chart. That's what I want. Insert a chart into this section. So I choose that one. Brings up a form, prompting me similarly to the original insert menu. I might want a bar chart here as well. And then we put our settings in. What do I want to use for this? That primary location path, because that is what our section is based upon. And down below, I might want to put in a couple different entries. My cost columns. So the expected hours cost, and the sum of that, versus any overtime hours cost. And that sum. So we'll see them side by side. Can also go to the format right here. Can change color combinations, put a title up top here if we want to. I call this my expected and overtime hours cost. Oops. And down here we also have information about the legend. If you want to even include it, you might say yes to explain what the color combinations mean. And we say right, left, top, or bottom. We're going to say below. And I OK that. And in every individual section, I will get a chart in every one of them. So machine shop will have its own one. Shipping, receiving, assembly, they'll all have one. So you can see it kind of drop in there, but there's no data yet. It says for machine shop. There's no data because we have no costing, right? Sean cannot see the costing no matter what. So Michael can. It'll look better when Michael sees it, but right now I'm not going to see anything. I see it multiple times there because I have multiple sections. So I'm going to save that and close it. And just go run both of those, show you what they look like. I come back in here. Micah Martin. And I'm going to come in here and run my vacation accrual balance first. I'm going to run it interactively to show you something that's kind of cool with this. Very often there's so much data to display in the chart, it can't show you everything. So there may not be headers where you're looking at a bar but you don't know what it represents. If you're running the report interactively, it will show a pop-up explaining what that bar represents. So I'm going to leave it, let's say we go back here again, range of dates. Interactive. Be a bit small, but it's more handy for the graph. Or chart, whatever the official word is for it. I get the get design failed. This sometimes gets in my way. It should not for what I'm doing. Notice we have the green bars there on the left-hand side. So look at that. I can take my best guess about what that number is down below for the apprentice welders. It's closer to 30,000, might be 30,000, might be a little less. But I can't tell unless I hover over it. And it says, okay, apprentice welders, 29,258.55. This other one over here, data entry clerks, almost 10,000. This little one right here, about 560 for the facility supervisor. Some of these are in between. I can see mechanical technician right there. That's this one, 580. Then you see master welder here. That's 1451.45. Then you see one after that. That's the manufacturing manager, but it could not fit the extra label in there. So the line is there with the data. And if I ran that as a PDF, I would see the line, but I would not have any means of figuring out what that represented. So running this interactively, you can see each one and what they represent. So there is the vacation accrual balances run interactively to show that entry. I bring that out of there, come back in, run the other reports, expected overtime hours and costs, select that one, run that for the previous pay period again. PDF is fine for this one, that's all right. We should see some information if there are any hours whatsoever. So here we don't see anything yet for this first one. This is the administration department. They don't have anything. If we start to go through here, there's another one there. That's for our assembly department. So the orange represents overtime hours cost. That's pretty substantial. Here again, I can hover over it, but it won't do anything. Right? This is a PDF. If I did this interactively, I'd probably see something with a number pop up. I can see the mostly expected hours, but there are some substantial overtime right there. It's up to about 2,500 overall. A little further down, might run into another one there. No data for these guys in the calibration plant, but in our machine shop, a little bit of overtime, not much, just a little bit. Most of theirs was expected hours. They did quite well. There's another one right there. That's the receiving department, a little bit more overall. They're also a smaller department than machine shop, so it's probably a little worse for them, percentage-wise. Another one right here, a little bit worse there as well for shipping. And that gets me to the end of my report. So every time we have a section, because there's a breakout by a different value, in this case for the primary location path, we're getting a chart for each one, which from the user perspective looks like you built all these individually. No, you didn't. You built one. But you put it in the location that repeats, and the section takes care of that for you. So where all this is, we come back here. Here are the buttons for you. Thank you. That's these pages. Pages 19 into 20 to 21, adding the charts to the report or to the section. I will leave it up to you. This is the last bit of content we have. There's no further presentation. You already filled out the eval for me. Thank you so much. In terms of what I can offer you, not a whole lot other than answering questions if you have them. So if you'd like to work on these exercises, feel free. I'll stay as long as you need me. If you've decided that you are like me and you don't ever plan to build charts, you may decide the demo is good enough and you don't really feel the need to work on these. I'll leave it entirely up to you. If you want to just bail out of class right now, you want to play with these, we have about 20 minutes left. Whatever you'd like to do. So I will hang out here as long as anyone needs me, but if you'd like to go, just let me know, and I will bid you adieu. It's getting late in the week, right? We're getting tired. That's right, you're going to take your leave? No problem. Yes, thank you very much for attending. Have a good night.